In your community, what has been the conversation that's top of heart for you? In other words, what do you feel that we really need to know right now about mental health at this time in the world?
Well, first, something that's really top of mind is that when we're relating to one another, just remembering the humanity in us all, and that whether you are pro mask or you don't want to wear the masks or whatever you think about the mask, just
Yeah.
remember we're all fighting our own battle. It's not about inferiority, superiority. It's just we can never know exactly what's happening in that other person's mind or situation, and so just kindness is the first thing when it comes to like relating to one another. But when it comes to mental health, I think the important thing to understand is that this pandemic they predict the next big issue will be a mental health epidemic. And unfortunately, we were kind of already there. 40 million people are suffering from anxiety, and that was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And, depression is the world's leading cause of disability, and there's nothing to be ashamed of if that's your reality. And so that's what I want people to know. I grew up and just thought something is wrong with me and I'm less than. And I just want you to know this is part of life. Mental health struggles, they linger sometimes, but we all experience them, and there's a lot you can do about them. So that's what I've learned.
That's so
I really
powerful.
love.
I love the way you brought up like, hey, if you're pro mask, if you're pro this, whatever. I found myself getting into narratives where I want to tell other people my truth and everything. But look, we're not here to convince anyone of anything. I think really what's happening is we see that there's a line of division between people. And there's been a line of division about mental health, and even like mental health being kind of like a no-no that you don't even talk about. It's like mental health, politics, food, and sex, certain things at the table that are challenging, right? But I have, experience with this in my own life. A lot of people know, if they're listening to Wellness Force for a while now, that, my mom suffered with taking lithium and being bipolar for 20 plus years. A lot of people in my family tree have taken SSRIs. So this is rampant. I mean, if you look at the numbers, and we're actually going to post an article right now that someone really special wrote. I'll let you guys figure it out when you click on the link. Someone really special wrote this article, and it's about boosting our mental health, because we can start with the inside to meet the outside world demands. That's what this is all about. We can't control other people's stress. We can't control the craziness online or the BS in the world. Give us some hearts and let us know if you are dealing with stress right now. Autumn, when we look at bolstering our mental health and actually taking care of the gut-brain axis in the brain, one of the coolest things that I know is that if we're taking in healthy fats and healthy protein, and we're getting all these good nutrients in our gut, that actually has a direct correlation with the brain, almost like a link, right? A redox system that Dr. Bush talked about. Share with us what you know about this link between the gut and the brain, and really the fat and the protein.
Yeah. Oh, it's so fascinating because yes, like most people thought that, okay, our brain and gut connection was like one way. We thought, and then it went into our gut. But what we know now is that like 4 messages for every one that comes from our brain to our gut goes from our gut to our brain. So when our gut's unhealthy, where 95% of our serotonin is made, 50% of our dopamine is made, then our brain becomes unhealthy too. What we also know is that there are many sources of inflammation in today's standard American diet. And inflammation, like they used to think that depression was this chemical imbalance, right? That we needed to treat with a pill. But people would be interested that there hasn't actually been a human trial to show that a serotonin deficiency is actually the cause of depression. That's kind of something we've been trained to believe
Interesting.
for financial interests. But the truth is, what we know now is that depression is often the root cause of a lot of mental health issues. And so when it looks at what are we doing more than we're eating every day, we're eating 3 times a day. And so I think if we're eating inflammatory foods, we are 3 times a day creating an inflammatory environment, not only in our gut, but also in our brain. And so I have a lot of steps people can take. And there's like 3 foundational ones I often just give if you'd like to hear those.
I love foundations, because sometimes we get like in the weeds of what are the biohacks and what are the crazy things we can do. And meanwhile, the foundations, the most important things, they just get glossed over. So take us to the foundations.
The foundation. Well, that's the kind of the first piece is just the inflammation. We have to find what's causing inflammation for you. And there's some really, like people have probably heard about gluten, but gluten can be a strictly neurological disease. For every 1 symptom in the gut, there's like 8 in the brain. Okay. So there's also this story about this PhD, like really intelligent woman who the gluten became such an issue that she became kind of psychotic. I think that it was spiraled so out of control that she attempted to murder her parents. Now, that's a really extreme example. Wow. What they found when they removed the gluten she got better. And I know, and I have a client I'm working with right now, and he is such a lovely soul. And when he eats gluten 5 days later, it will be 5 days later, he will have paralyzing anxiety. Okay, so it's gluten, sometimes it's dairy for people, but other people have just other foods that their body's not tolerating well, or like underlying gut dysfunction, which is causing healthy foods to become inflammatory for their bodies. And so just finding that source of inflammation, even things like BPA exposure in plastics have been linked to mental health issues. And so it isn't, well, you can start with food. It's a very powerful place to begin. It definitely isn't the only cause of inflammation. Just want to throw that out there. The second one is nutrient deficiencies. So we are all talking about, well, at least the people I'm in contact with lately, what we're not eating. We're eliminating gluten and dairy and soy and whatever else. And I think that's great. And that is powerful for a lot of people. But the bigger picture I think we all miss is like, what are we eating? And is this enough to sustain us? Because all of our brain chemicals, like our proteins that we're taking in, that is becoming our neurotransmitters. Okay. So if we're not getting enough protein, or our body's unable to digest that protein, then it will manifest in nutrient deficiencies. B12 is a big one. Fish oil is a big one. Magnesium is a big one. And there's another really cool, powerful story about a lifelong vegetarian who all of a sudden became delusional, and it spiraled in. She became catatonic eventually, and no one really knew what to do with her. They tried electroconvulsive therapy. They did everything and anything. Thankfully, she was transferred to a different hospital. They gave her B12 injections, and she had a full recovery. So just vitamins, simple vitamins. And my little hack for this to track it is like an app called Chronometer. Do you use this, Josh?
No, but tell us about it.
Yeah, it's so simple. It's like MyFitnessPal, but it has this really extensive micronutrient database. Rather than just looking at proteins, fat, and carbohydrates, you're going to see your iron, your vitamin A, your vitamin Bs, all the stuff. If you just take 3 days out of your life and just put everything you put into your mouth into that software, it'll show you where those nutrient gaps might be. And if you're looking low in the Bs, if you're looking low in the omega-3 fatty acids, in iron, in zinc, in vitamin C, these are really key nutrients for the brain, and especially protein. Like I said, those are our precursors to neurotransmitters. This is the one thing I find with pretty much every woman I work with. She is under eating high quality protein, and it definitely impacts not only the blood sugar, but also the mental health.